like,
Yeah.
um, like checking the school group every like, like I said, when I tell you like I'd go into the other room and like trying to, you know what I mean? Like, uh, like, and so, and that was part of it is like, but I would frame it as like, well, this is kind of like my job, you know what I mean? So I was constantly, and it's like, that's not necessary. Like he doesn't even do that, you know what I mean? And it's his group and he's not even on there that much.
Yeah.
So, um, that was part of it. It just happened to coincide with when I made a post and I was like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. The comments are going to be there and it'll be all right. So,
That's
um,
right.
yeah, it was partly that. So,
And that's just it, right? Like sometimes the doing is the not doing. And I think that's that's probably been the most difficult concept to actually like really understand. But even in like, because in finding the not doing and that breath work that I've been really working on this last
mhm.
week, and not really having like a whole lot of time to act within that on the like the few days that we were driving and in Alberta and with the
Yeah.
parents, but recognizing that in the moments where I set my intention to change and shift the energy and and it's interesting because without realizing it, I set myself up a point of validation to
Mhm.
know that it worked because I had said to my friend, I said, my dad's going to come home and say, I
Yeah.
can't find anything. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I literally set that up for myself and didn't even realize in the moment of doing it that that's exactly what I had done and was giving myself a point of validation that my
Mhm.
energy shift had worked
Yeah.
because I cleaned up their space, I cleared the energy, I grounded the space outside and all of this stuff. Like I was doing it naturally without actually like the intention. It was so natural to do it,
Yeah.
right? Like they came back, I didn't ground the space before they came back, and because they were like, we're going to Costco. I was like, oh, okay, well, we'll be here. And they're like, what? And they turned around and come back, and I was like, well, you could have just went and did your thing. Like I'm not going anywhere. I would have just
Yeah.
waited, but they made a point to come back, and they were miserable. And
Mhm.
I was like, what is
Yeah.
wrong with you? I'm like, I thought you'd be happy to see me. No, 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 they weren't. So, you know, um, my mom's like, we have to go to Costco. Because I was like, well, normally they would like give themselves some grace and they'd be like, okay, like let's do this. Because my dad hates Costco on any day, never mind a weekend day,
Yeah.
um, especially Saturday. So for them to still actually go to Costco afterwards, because they're like, do you guys want to come? And I'm like, no. And then
Yeah.
that rumble about that, right? And I was like, darn it, like man. So they leave, and I looked at Jane and I was like, welcome to my family. So as my parents are driving away, it had poured. It poured when it started to pour as they were coming back. Pour. And as they were leaving, the clouds start to separate and this raining stops. And the clouds are following them to Edmonton. And Jane's like, well, if the clouds come back, want a piece? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Right. Because I'm like, then it's like, I know the clouds following my parents.
Yeah.
So um, so I turn around and I ground the space and I clean the house. And while I'm cleaning, I'm setting that intention. I'm like, I'm just going to clear this energy, clearing the negative energy, clearing the space, right?
Yeah.
So my dad sits down and I was like, cleaned up the table for you guys and tied it up. And he's like, oh, thank you very much. And then like a couple minutes later, we kind of like switched spots and I pointed at something that I was like, I bet you are going to need to find this. And he's like, oh, now I can't find anything. And he's got like this big smile on his face. But it was the fact that he said it because
Yeah.
I knew he was going to say it, but normally it would have been a grumble. No, no, you cleaning up. Nothing is where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Uh-huh.
that would be the
Uh-huh.
normal response.
Yep.
And in this one, it was like a smile on his face, like, now I can't find anything. I'm like, you haven't even looked for anything,
Um,
motherfucker. What do you mean?
yeah.
Like,
So
you haven't even looked for something.
it's like the same program because I know exactly what you're talking about. I used to be the same way. Like I would have like clutter everywhere and then like Rustin would kind of like, put and I'm like, oh my God, like there was a madness to like what was happening, and so then
There's a
but
method in it. There was madness, but there was method in the madness. And I know my head the same way. My desk at work, the boss would always be like, there's somebody higher up coming. Can you clean your desk? And I'm like, is
yeah,
there anything you need from the
yeah,
time that it looks like this to the time that it's clean till it's back like this? Is there
yeah,
anything that you
yeah,
need right now? No,
yeah,
no, no, I'm good. I clean. And I would do it. I would do it alphabetical. I would put everything in files. Then he'd come to me and goes, I need this. And I'm like, damn it. And I would
Now I
go
can't
to the
find it.
space. I would go to the space where I'd be like, okay, if I know I alphabeticalized, I know I did this, and I'd go to that space. I'm like, well, you can't find it. And so the desk would end up looking like it did because now I have to pull everything out to find the piece of paper that he needed. And then it looked
Yeah.
just like it did before I started. I'm like, I hate you so much sometimes. This isn't fair. I warned you. I said, do you need anything?
Yeah. But it almost seems like, because that's all like an identity, right?
That is.
Of like, oh, everything's a mess, but like clutter and I know where it is and stuff like that. Because I know energetically how much better I feel when I have, um, even if you're not in this space and you're not of this awareness, like to clean, right? It's
Yeah,
something more than just stuff being moved and stuff being cleared.
that's right.
Literally on an energetic level, it just feels so much better. I mean, feng shui, everything like that. So I mean, that was my old identity, but like it almost sounds like your dad, like that's still like his programming, but like his energy had shifted. So that's why he wasn't saying it from like a whole like F you, I can't find anything. It was more of like, you know what I mean? Because like that
Yeah,
still has a release and shed, like some of the same stuff still comes out, but it comes out with less power. You know what I
that's
mean?
right. There was a love behind
Yeah.
it, right? Like there was
Yeah.
just an like you said, different energy that came from it. And like I say, I think the words themselves were again like a validation of sorts. Like it was and it kind of didn't just validate for me, but it validated for my friend because she's on the start of this journey, but she
Yeah.
is very resistant in letting go of the old story. She's very resistant in like changing and shifting. Like there's that absolute resistance to letting go of the old stories. That's exactly what it is. She's just resistant to let go of the old stories and um and actually recognizing the completion of cycles. And we went to the gas station and the first pump, some guy like cut around us and took the middle pump because she assumed it was broken and she didn't want to take it and find out it was broken. I was like, well, she should have just went in there anyways because the guy in front was going to be done soon, but she didn't take it, so the guy behind us took it. Then he waved us to the front. Well, we get to the front one wouldn't take her card, and the guy's like, well, have you ever had this happen before? And she's like, no. So he's like, okay, we'll go back around, like do the illegal thing because they say no left turns into the gas station yet. It's only right turns or whatever because we went to Costco. And she goes into the next spot. Well, of course, the next spot, the card takes her card, no problem. And she goes, see, it's all these little inconveniences. And I said, well, these are the little inconveniences that are showing you the cycles that you're still living within. And I said, these are the things that like when you finally get to your goal, I said, your goal is going to show up and it's going to be in front of you and then something's going to dissolve and then it's going to be the big things and spiral you back. And she goes, that's not how this works. And I was like, but it is how this works. And I'm like, you're getting closer and closer and closer, but this is a cycle that's going to continue to play out. Well, it's just a little inconvenience. And I laughed them off. And I said, but in laughing them off, have you not felt that you've built until that bigger inconvenience to the one that shoots you into this? It's always me. It always happens to me. And the big things like, and she kind of was like, oh, I never seen it like that. I said, these little inconveniences are the way for you to acknowledge the cycle, become aware of the cycle, and
Yeah.
shift that belief within you. And so she was very hesitant on that one. But she had, at that point, she was a little bit more open to it because she had seen how much I shifted from within my parents, like how
Mhm.
the energy, she's like, she couldn't believe it. The clouds never came back. The sky stayed blue. Their whole energy was completely different. My mom, who has bad knees and bad legs and bad everything, took my friend's dog and walked so fast that we almost didn't catch up to them for the walk. We were literally a block behind, and me and her are fit. Like, she's a bodybuilder and I'm, like a fitness instructor. And here we go, fucking tricking after my mother with
Yeah.
her dog.
Oh
We're like,
my
come on,
gosh.
even the dog was
Wow.
like, I don't know what's happening right now.
Oh, I love that.
You're right. So I mean, like the difference, the whole dynamic of the visit was shifted in just me allowing them space to leave because in my old identity, in my own cycle, old cycle, showing up, having them turn around to come back would have obligated me to go with them, regardless of the situation. I would have felt that obligation to be with them and stuff like that. But I recognized in that moment, I'm like, no, you guys go do what you need to do and let me clear your space, right? So I let them go and I cleared their space, and that changed the entire rest of the weekend for us. So with that dynamic in mind and her recognizing that, and having that conversation, she really, like, she was more open to listen to what I had to say at Costco and about that cycle. And then when we got to her place and stuff like that, we started chatting about how she sees people. And she goes, I don't see skin color. And she goes, and I got shit at the dog park the other day for not acknowledging that this child was black. And her first thought was because it was an adopted child by a white mother. She goes, she's doing this so people are proud of her and see her for doing this.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, if that was your first inclination, I said, that's 100%. Like, that's, that's the intuitive notion. And that's exactly what she wants. Like, she's looking for praise because she, as a white individual, is now taking care of a black individual. Like, she
Yeah.
is creating that dynamic of skin differences. And you not acknowledging that takes away her power and her pride. And she goes, and then we started talking further about her visualization and like how she sees people. And she goes, I don't look for skin color. I don't look for much other than like, do you give off a good vibe? And I was like, you're looking at people's souls. You are seeing beyond people. Like, as long as you stay in that energy and actually recognize and now have the awareness to what you are looking for in people, I'm like, you'll never be duped by somebody. You'll never, find yourself in a relationship that doesn't suit you, as long as you don't go along against that intuition and that intuitive notion of looking at people and their souls. So I left her in a really, even a better space than I normally leave her in, which was really nice as well. So I was like, but I was ready to go home at that point. I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Well, it's always good when people are curious. And I love, actually, a friend of mine, like last year, she used to say this, and she's was like working on becoming like a coach, and we had kind of like a session, and she was like, because I had said that I was resistant to like journaling, writing stuff down. And she was like, "Oh, that's interesting." She's like, "Why?" And I was like, "I don't really know." And I was like, "It's like I don't mind talking about it, but it's like the writing it down kind of thing, or writing down." No, it wasn't journaling in general. It was like writing down what I wanted. I don't know, something like that. And she's like, "I wonder why." And I was like, "I don't know." But anyway, she would just be like, "I'm curious," right? Just like a kid, like literally. And I absolutely, and she would do that, and it was genuine, and like I felt it, and I was like, I just love this. And so I've made curious more like of a mantra of a word, right? Of just because, and then that also helps too with like the ego. So I find when people are curious, like, oh, like why this, why that, like, but the curiosity part, not like the questioning or the judgment. And so I think that makes us more open, and then they're also more willing to listen to what you have to say when they're curious.
Oh,
Um,
100%. Yeah, I love that, and curiosity hasn't, I mean, I'm not a very curious person in a lot of ways. So,
yeah. Oh, God, I
um,
am all the time. Oh my
and
gosh.
Brandon too, and well, even Jane, because like she had a question answered, and she's like, and then she was like, well, now that I know that answer, why?
Yeah.
and I think that there's definitely something within that energy that is being drummed up within me. Um, like we were driving past a property, and I mean, and I always love like properties and stuff like that, and seeing, and just there is like that general curiosity of like what other people's houses look like, and what's in
Yeah.
the yard and that kind of stuff. But Brandon had said something, and I'm usually the passenger, so I'm usually the one that gets to like look at all this stuff. But I'm like, yeah, my give a shit is minimal right now. Like it's
Mhm.
right. And Jane laughed so hard. She's like, that was like the best way of like, because I was like, it was just like a genuine response. Like my, like I'm not gonna go exploring their property. Somebody lives there. Like, sure,
Yeah.
okay, maybe there's an interest of why they have something in a certain way, but I'm, you know, in my mind, if I'm not going to get to explore that curiosity, if I'm not going to get to find out why, it's like, do I really give a shit? No, not excessively, because you
Yeah.
know, the less you know, the better off you are. And a lot of, in my life, and some of like, you know, and again, that can be another like old cycle. Maybe that's like playing free because, you know, I lived in a biker environment. The less you knew, the better off you were. I lived in trap houses and places where you just didn't want to know what was happening around you because it was just easier on your soul, you know, especially if you didn't want to be a part of it. And it was just those instances in life where the less you knew, the better off you were. And
Yeah.
so breaking free of that mental construct, I believe again is going to be another point of power for me to actually be able to come in with a healthy curiosity to finding better situations and like learning more about what drives people. So no, I love that you said that because that honestly like felt like it flipped a switch somewhere up in here. So
Yeah. Sure. Um, did you get a chance to listen? I know I sent my message not that long ago about the meditation.
no, your last message. So I had a call at 9. So like I said, all of a sudden my
Oh.
schedule, like I have to book off next week at 9 because like everybody seems to be booking me at like 9 a.m. So I have to go. I have to remember because my call with my last client went like an extra half an hour, which was unexpected. But then it was like we did our call, and then it was like the friendship talk, right? Right. So
Mm, gotcha.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So so I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. I seen it there, and I had 1 minute, and I was like, damn it, it's 4 minutes. I'm like, I don't have enough time.
Oh wow, that's so funny. I do that too. I'm like, nope, I don't have time right now unless I don't want to do the next thing. No, it was it was a Jess Shepherd meditation,
Yep.
but it's kind of, I don't remember the name. Higher something healing, but kind of like an inner child-ish kind of thing. And it was really powerful, and essentially you kind of she has you drop into your heart, and then you go to like your third eye. She doesn't say it, but like in between your eyebrows. And then you essentially like literally flip around and you're looking at yourself.
No, my camera just turned off, but I am still here.
Oh
I'm
no,
just looking. Oh, is it
it's
on?
still, yeah.
Oh, sure. It showed me that it went off. So
Oh,
I have
funny.
the heart opening guided meditation, release, intend, receive by Jeff Shepherd.
No, it
Not that
is.
one. That's so funny. I have so much just. I
Um,
got
Extremely powerful healing meditation, love and accept yourself.
love and accept yourself. Do I have that one?
Yeah.
Because I have so much. I love her so much. So,
Yeah. Same. Same.
um, but I've been sitting in the silence of my mind. So I have the intention vortex guided meditation for powerful manifestation. Have I sent you that one? If I haven't, I'm ridiculous. This one
Um,
is
I just sent it to you. I don't.
okay. Oh, okay. I'm sending you this one because
Yeah.
we're swapping meditations, folks.
Yes.
This is what friends. This is what we really do.
Oh,
This is
wait. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And you know what's super interesting about that
yeah.
is that I went, because I have in my YouTube, I have the different uh what are they called? Um why am I drawing a blank right now? A playlist. There you go.
The
Duh.
playlist. Yeah.
I
Okay.
was
Yeah.
like,
I was like the saved list. A saved list was where I was going, but playlist. Yep.
yeah, so I have one that's kind of like a just generality, like, oh, I named it positive, just like some stuff to watch, and then I have a meditation one, so it's specific, just meditations,
Me
and
too.
then I have like shamanic healings and blah blah blah. Well, anyway, so I went into meditations because I'm like, I specifically wanted to meditate this morning, and I hadn't done it for like a while, and so no joke, I went upon that one, the vortex one, and interestingly enough, because I think it was at the bottom, and something held me there for a second, and I'm like, I don't want to do that one right now, like, but it like held me there. And again, by held, I mean we're talking like 5 seconds, but longer than. So it must have been because you were going to show me that this morning, because there's no other reason. But anyway, so like I was drawn to that one. That's actually a really good one as well. And I almost was like, do I want to do that? And then I was like, no, something to do with like clearing like the stuff from yesterday. And
Yeah.
so, but yeah, so when I was done with it, because essentially it takes you to an emotion, like what are you feeling right now, right? Like staring at yourself.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
it's like, okay, but what's underneath that? Because a lot of times we'll be like, oh, I'm angry. Yeah, but kind of under that, okay, what, you know what I mean, to get to kind of like the root of like what it actually is, right? And so I went through all that, and then at the end of it, like I hadn't opened my eyes yet, but we were finished, and it was as though like somebody was like going like this,
Mhm.
like you know, like just that light, like almost like throbbing, but no, not pain. You know, there was no pain, but
Yeah,
it never happened to me before, so it was really really cool. Um,
that's awesome.
yeah, so I felt like a lot of stuff. Because essentially, like you're looking at yourself in that emotion and the stuff that it brings up with like nothing but love. Like you
Yeah.
identify it as like, okay, I'm feeling shame, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. But then looking at yourself like you would like a friend or a loved one, you know.
Mm.
So it was really powerful, and I'm glad that I allowed myself to. Because originally I was going to do a Dr. Joe one, and I did,
Right.
and then after like a minute, I was like, no, this is not for
This
me.
isn't right. Yeah.
It was really powerful. It was really good.
It was interesting because in my session I was like teaching how to turn down the lower chakras to turn
Mhm.
up the upper chakras. So because so there's two things that I've really like I've always known, and it's so interesting that I'm going to say this because it's something that I've learned before that I feel like I know that I've known for a very long time before the internet, before, you know, like in the first processes of like learning manifestation and understanding manifestation. I remember talking about the psoas, that the muscle in your lower stomach at your sacral chakra, essentially, that goes from your pelvis to, you know, is
Mhm.
like your two big muscles in your stomach, right? Your psoas, and then your solar plexus. So the solar plexus has been something that's been like popping up to me, but I hadn't really put in a lot of like a lot of energy towards the solar plexus. In doing the new breathing that I've been doing and in paying attention to, and then it brought me to my attention to my solar plexus. And then the next teaching I get was like, okay, breathe deeper, breathe further, do the same breathing technique, but take it into your psoas and breathe through your psoas, because these two centers are your main manifestation, your main like creativity. It comes
Yeah.
from the psoas muscle, and the psoas muscle, we forget about it so much that it just gets so tight and it prevents the movement of everything else. And then the solar plexus is just your space of creativity, and it's like that connection between the mind and your solar plexus starts to draw in the manifestation and the breathing techniques that I've really been working on, and having that space in the silence, and finding that space between thoughts. And this morning's re, um it's sorry, I don't know where my brain just went. That was really interesting. I can't totally just like I went into my visualization from this morning is what just happened. Even in just talking about these two spaces, I literally was like back in my visualization that actually took place this morning, which was the most clear. I heard my niece's voice. I heard my sister's voice. I heard my parents. I seen the guy handing me my truck, shaking my hand, handing me the keys, saying drive safe. Like, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I obviously know why, you know, because that's the space that I'm working within. Um, but since I've been sitting in that silence, which is why I'm making the that 1 day event of the breathe your way
Mhm.
into manifestation, because it's going to talk about a lot of this and more, of course. But it's like putting together all of the practices, because it was a reading that actually brought me to this on TikTok, and she was like, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you know, because and it caught my attention just because I was doing the fitness, and it's always 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Yeah.
8, right? Like that's our counting. And she goes, and what I'm hearing is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it was turning into an infinity symbol. And
Mm.
I'm like, she's like, they're telling you you have all the answers, but you're not practicing one of them. And the one thing that I wasn't practicing was, and the breathing is something I always practice within my meditation space, but I wasn't taking myself into conscious breathing outside of that. And I
Yeah.
also had never meditated without noise up until last week. Never. I was never finding myself in a space. And sitting up is the other big one that I didn't do a whole lot of. And this now in this over the weekend, I didn't really meditate at all, but I set and grounded my space, which I
Yeah.
recognize, like I said, to be work because of how everything changed. But and coming home this morning, like I sat for 10 minutes in my space, and I was like, all of a sudden I was up and writing things down. And I was like, oh, I got to write this down now. And then I was like, man, I only meditated for 10 minutes. I was like, that's crazy. So I wrote everything down, and I took myself out to the field, and all of a sudden I was getting a tap on the shoulder saying, hey, you got 5 minutes for your appointment. I was like, oh, shit, where'd time go now? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, so yeah, it's been really, really interesting, but I don't think that was still where I was going, where I started talking, like, but just the fact that, but I know that it was talking within these spaces. Um, but it's really
So
interesting because,
quieting the lower chakras.
oh
What?
yeah, lowering the chakras. That's what I was teaching. I'm like, how did I get so off track? But I'm like, they're reminding me to turn them back up was a problem. So when I told her to turn down that lower, just to start playing with the chakras, I started getting like tightness in my chest, and I was like, I'm like, okay, I can't turn I'm like, I'm not meaning to intentionally turn down mine right now. So I'll turn back up my solar plexus. I was like, I'll turn down my other lower chakras, but apparently my solar plexus was like, nope, we're in the midst of manifesting. You need this up. And I'm like, okay, so I turn it up. So I'm trying to explain this, but I tend to naturally, as I'm explaining things, and this is like why anybody that comes to these is going to benefit, because as I'm explaining, as I'm talking, I'm noticing that I'm flowing my energy the way that I'm talking. So whenever I'm, so I'm sharing that energy and I'm sharing that space of knowledge, and I do it within myself in that
Yeah.
moment of sharing that information. But I didn't realize that I was doing that until I was like, oh, turn down your solar plexus. And my chest went, I was like, turn that solar plexus back up.
Yeah.
It was a really interesting, like, bodily reaction. But it was also in that moment where it also came to me that in the 9 months that I got my mastery of energy work, I never used to feel it within my body. I could turn down my lower chakras, and the only reason why I knew for sure that it was working was because I had a body scan done, and she's like, "Why are your lower chakras so like low, like you?" And I was like, "Oh, my bad. I just got out of a reading before coming here and didn't I didn't turn anything back up." And
Wow.
that's how I knew. Whereas now, within being in like that new space, like being within Yuki space, I can actually feel the energy around me. I can feel my body shift. I can feel the energy move around me, which was I was viewing it, because that's how, I mean, I was taught to read from a view space. Like, I was taught my energetic boundaries, I was taught how to set them, and then I was taught how to use my gifts, and then I was taught how to bring in that information. But I never but in doing it that way, I never embodied. I never put that information in my body. I legit, like, the more, because I'm very literal. My brain took it very literal. Like, I created that space around me. So even the stuff that I was meaning to bring into my body, I did, but I didn't allow my vision or my space in my actual energetics to feel it within my body.
Yeah.
So in recognizing that, I can now recognize people in my space. I recognize when I've embodied the information, embodied that energy, and allowed that energy to flow. I'm now feeling it in a different way than emotions. It's literal, like we were talking about getting electrocuted by a light bright this morning. So when I was a kid, and it's so funny because I was told that, like, this light bright didn't exist. And I got this verified today that it did actually exist. The original light bright, the original light bright didn't light up until you place the metal tongs together. And every light would light up individually with the electronic tongs that
Yeah.
touched. I wanted to be always as close to them as I could to stick them in the hole. And I got my first lesson in electricity, which made me never want to be an electrician, and it shot me across the room. And I
Wow.
zapped myself, and it was powerful enough. So, um, and then I was so talking to some of the younger generation. They're like, light brights like that didn't exist. And I'm like, oh, freaking hell, they did. Yes, they did. And I remember getting the second generation of light bright, because, of course, after that, I wasn't allowed to play with my light bright no more.
Yeah.
So the second generation of light bright, of course, is the light's always on, and then you just put your different colors in it. And I was like, well, that's no fun. Like, I remember hating it. I didn't touch it after that. I was like, nope, this isn't what I wanted. I absolutely was fascinated with the fact that these tiny little lights, as soon as but it's like Christmas. It was like the Christmas light kind of thing.
Yeah.
You
Oh
stick
yeah.
that, like, that was the design, right? If you pull one of those out, none of them work. But these ones would actually, like, individually light up a circuit, and I
Yeah.
freaking loved it. And as soon as they changed that, I was like, well, this isn't as fun. Even I was like, I was done electrocuting myself. I learned my lesson, but I still like the individual lights being lit up. I didn't want to experience all the, like, I'm like, how fun is this? The lights are already on. I already know what the page looks like. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know, it didn't have the same buzz to me.
Yeah, mystery. I never had one. Like, obviously I know what it is, but yeah, I never had one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I it missed my awareness, I guess. I don't know. There's some toys well, I mean, it's partially that and partially that like my parents were in lack of limitation, so it was always like a Teddy Ruxpin. I remember like those and stuff like I don't
Oh,
have.
I love my Teddy Ruxpin.
I don't know, just different stuff like that. So, um,
Yeah,
like I had a lot of like hand-me-down stuff and like
me
Barbies
too.
and stuff. It was like, garage sale or like whatever. So,
Yeah.
but
And
yeah.
I don't know if like, and I know like in having that light bright, like it was my favorite toy for a long time. And I don't know. Yeah, that was one that I know that I don't know where it could have come from grandparents, like, because
Yeah.
we lived the same way. It was lack of limitation. Like I understand why in creating within even like even being within the space that we've been in, why creating like what I'm creating has felt at times difficult, has felt at times like, man, it's never going to happen, or and finding those old cycles. But and then you see these people that find this space and are instantly like, like, oh, everything's great. Then you go and talk to them. It's like, oh, it took me 15 years to get into this great space. Well, then don't say it happened overnight, because it didn't happen overnight. You know,
Yeah.
like,
I talk
but
about that. I've talked about that too, like where, um, like the whole rags to riches type story. And I just say that so that we understand what we're talking about, right? And then it's like, I'm like, okay, but there was like there's like a gap that people don't talk about, I feel like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, it may have in, the realm of like quantum jumping and stuff, like it probably didn't take, 40 years, but there was still that gap that I'm sure they weren't talking about. Like I remember hearing like Tony Robbins' story, right? And we all know like gave his last $20 to some kid in a restaurant or whatever, right? And then it was like, now here I am. And I'm like, hold on a second though. Like, I'm sure there was still a gap in time from because you didn't literally hand that kid $20 and then the next day you were Tony Robbins who you are now. So, and granted, it
when
doesn't have to take 20 years, 10 years, 5, you know what I mean? But I'm saying there is that middle part that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about because it doesn't sell a story. You know what I mean?
what the
It's not
story.
marketing. Like, well,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And how do you sell your product saying, well, even in getting my help is going to take you 10, 15 years to get where you need to be. Right? You can't really
and it
you
doesn't
can't
have
really
to,
sell
like,
people
because
on
if you,
that.
yeah, because I mean, if you believe, you know what I mean, just like our last mentor, like she believes that like she can change her belief in an instant. So
Yep.
if she goes from believing she's a millionaire to believing she's a billionaire, right? Like, but the other part to that is like because it takes things in the universe to conspire along with that, like you can change your belief in an instant because now you believe in, right? But there is that gestational period for the rest of the universe to conspire to bring that.
And
So
actually, I don't know that it's the universe that takes the time. It's an understanding that it's the absolute belief. Holy moly, why is that sentence not working? It's the absolute belief within our own constructs of our mind.
yeah,
Because I know that I've experienced manifestation instantly. Like
yes,
living in the middle of nowhere, having and being and then like this is space, like I was off of the gabapentin, but my brain wasn't completely back. My pain was still extravagant. And I wanted a rock cutter. We lived with no service. Like there should have been no way a rock cutter shows up on my doorstep. And yet
mm,
within 3 days of statement, I want a rock cutter, a tile cutter, it showed up on my doorstep for free. Like there was no, and of course I was like, well, I manifested that, right? Like real fast.
yeah,
And then I found that because I recognized that manifestation could happen instantly, there was a belief that once my pain went away, that everything that I wanted was going to be manifested in my hands right now.
yeah,
However, within a month of my pain being gone, there's all of a sudden all of the background noise in my head. There was all of a sudden like there's back to being an ego that was giving disbelief, even with all of the belief that we have seen in other ways. There was like an ego. There was that point in my mind that was saying, well, no, now it can't happen. You got the one thing that changed your life. Your pain is gone. So that's all you get. right? Like there was like that limiting, there's that limiting. So there's still that time of where the creation, the universe will present it to us instantly. But but we have to work beyond that part of the brain that tells us that we can't have that.
Yeah.
And that's in recognizing where we find that now. And that's just within this last few days. Like within this last few days, it's been in that breathing technique. It's been in the silence of my mind, where in that silence, I take myself to the space of I am who I am, and that is enough. And I bring myself to I am me. I am worthy of everything I desire. I am a magnet for all I desire. And I take myself there every time I do this breathing technique. I sit in that space. And it's made, like I say, the clients, you know, I haven't done any advertising, I haven't been live, I haven't done this, and all of a sudden I'm looking at my calendar, I'm like, holy crap, I have people. Like, and and so in listening to that girl say, well, you know, you have all the pieces, what pieces aren't you using? It was the
Mm,
breathing, it was that space in silence, in that space between thoughts. And then I used to have so much of that that I didn't
yeah.
recognize how much of that I had. Like there was, as my brain started coming back, the thoughts were still, it was an ADHD brain, right? It wasn't like there was silence between my thoughts on a regular basis, easily. And that it was the difference. And that is what's made the change. And so I'm excited to hold the 1 day class and put it all together for people and just kind of, you know, and it's going to be still, it's still going to be different for everybody because there still is that point. There has been a year and a half of taking all of these little pieces of information and putting it together and recognizing what was missing for me. Maybe
Yeah.
somebody's already doing the breathing. Maybe it's, but maybe they're not sitting in that silence and giving themselves the space between the thoughts. Maybe they're not visualizing. You know, like it's all of the pieces together that make the whole. And yes, you can manifest from each individual space, but it's always going to be a little bit messy. It's like calling in the money before you've built the foundation and the realization of recognizing how to make that money work for you. The universe will throw you 50 grand, you know, you'll win that, and you know, you'll believe you're lucky and you'll win that, but all of a sudden it'll be gone because you'll still be living in a space of lack with the
Yeah.
abundance,
With money.
and
Yeah.
you'll blow it all, and it's not going to come back to you because the universe gave you it through you know, you manifested what you wanted, but you just assumed that it was going to continue to keep manifesting in that way. But then, you know, but if there's still that subconscious programming that you haven't eliminated, now you've got this 50 grand and it's gone in a heartbeat. And now you're back to, you know, worse off when you started, because now you, instead of paying outright for something, you took something on payments and then blew the rest of the money. And now you're not working. You didn't think, you know, you didn't build yourself anything. And now you're stuck with all of these payments and trying to go, well, now what do I do? And I
Yeah.
don't want to go back to work. I've got a taste of this and I don't want to do that. And now you're spinning your wheels to get yourself into a space of, well, now I understand how the universe works, but how do I stay within the space of the universe working with
Mhm.
me?
What can I ask you what made you say 50 grand?
Um,
Just curious. I'm just curious, like why you said
I
that
don't
versus any
I don't
number.
actually know because it's not even a number that's really come up for me a lot. So,
Okay, because this is wild. So Rustin's been doing heavily the like the clarity piece around the business, right? And I don't have, oh my gosh, we have like 100 notebooks around here. I don't know where it is, but we did the you know, like the bubble thing where you write something in the middle and then the boop boop
yeah,
boop, right? And so and I told you this kind of like when you were like, what's a number to move, right? And I was like, well, shit, I don't know. And so seemingly out of nowhere, we wrote down 50 grand because we're like, well, let's just put, you know what I mean? Let's just put this number down because it's large enough to where we have some room either way. And then we came up with different things that we can do, right? Blah, blah. So that's how the IGS thing that he's doing now came about. So the other day he goes, what's 2100 times 23 or something? And I was like, shit, I don't know. Like, I'm not a math person, you know? And so I did the math and it was literally $50,400. Yes, I have an old school calculator.
I love
And
it.
it's like, what numbers are these? What are we doing, right? So the system it's $27 a month for the school group, and then you get the platform, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, I was like, what's the 2400 or the 2100? And he's like, that's literally how many people I see in my school group. And
Yeah.
I was like, there's that $50,000 again. And so then I've
Okay.
been
Yep.
like per month, right? So then I'm like walking around like, okay, in my head, I'm like, okay, we have $50,000. We make $50,000 a month. Like, what are we doing? What am I doing? Who am I? Right. So this has been like playing over my head. And then when you go 50 grand, and I'm like, why did she say that?
So it
I was like,
actually,
why
and
did
it
she
was so
say
funny
that?
because at that point I don't actually know because my number as of lately
Yeah.
has been 156,000. And it's
Mhm.
so funny because as I've broken that number down, I was like in the beginning when I first made my definite purpose, I wanted to make 50,000 per month with 3 businesses minimum, which is
Yeah.
equaling the 150,000. And I've left it at that. And I was like, so, but for the 3 businesses, I don't know what those are. And then now I'm like, when I figured out what I needed to, like, if I was going to take 5 homeless people and take them off the street, give them a place to live,
Mhm.
what would I need to have? And it would work out to like 1 million. And if I break it down, it works out to 50,000 a month. And then what
Yeah.
do I need to live? And I basically doubled that. And it's because I need $50,000 a month to run a healing retreat, to run an apartment, to run, um, to pay out for 5 people, to to have exactly what the government would give them a year, plus food, plus accommodations, plus, right?
Yeah.
And then what do I need to live comfortably to run my healing retreat? So it worked
Mhm.
out to just over $2 million, which is $156,000 a month, which is $8,000 a day. But in figuring it out, the 3 businesses, I'm like, okay, well, I got my program can bring in easily, 50,000. My readings, again, doing it this way, like and different things. And then I always had affiliate marketing, and then I took into investing. And if I invested this way, and every single time I break it down, it's always breaks down to $50,000 3 times, which is what I put into my definite purpose. So, but that's why
Wow.
when you're like, well, why 50,000? I was like, well, I don't know because I've been at 156,000 per month. And I'm like, but how does that, and then as you started talking and then about the bubbles, and it's funny because I just did those bubbles too, like a couple weeks ago. And the last bubble, I actually do believe I started with 50,000 in it and added the one because I was like, I already know that this is what my monthly is to be able to give to the homeless, to be able to elevate, to be able to invest in people, to do all of the things. And and I have it all broken down on, like this is going to make this happen, and to have this amount makes this happen. And so it was at 156. So when you asked that, and I was like, I actually don't know why I ended up back at that $50,000, but it makes sense being connected to your energy. But it also takes me back
Yeah.
to my original number.
Yeah.
And I
And
was like,
connected the bubble too. So then it's kind of
yeah,
just, yeah, that quantum entanglement. Exactly. That's
right.
wild. I've been writing down, like I literally, so I typically, like I said, have my little notebooks and I've had to separate them. Like I have one that I started for you and I, where it's like that you can't make this shit up of like what I say, what you say, like blah, blah, blah. I don't have a lot on here. I'm sure we've had 100 more. Then I have one
No,
that really do my angel numbers, like the day
no,
and what the number is. And then I've started
that's a
writing down
full
like,
page.
huh?
That's a full
And that's
page.
not even all. I just started that. And then, but I had, oh, because I did the lies thingy. So on the
Oh,
back,
good.
it was just kind of for scratch paper, but I've been writing that like just randomly. Like there's like so I did just like you were talking about, I don't know if this is backwards, but 50,400 times 12. So that's 604,800 a year, right? Like stuff like that. Um, but, and then I also did like a little, like, a paragraph of like, who was talking about it? I think it might have been in Yuki's, in something. I don't even remember, but it was like, what are you doing? And so then I'm literally like writing down because I was drinking my matcha, and then I'm like, oh, I'm drinking matcha like in my backyard, which has a pathway to the beach. Like it tastes good. I can smell the ocean. We make $50,000 a month. I live in abundance. Like da 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 da. Right? Like all this stuff. It feels surreal. And then I actually like, but like actually feeling it because I remember when we moved here because it is more value for than like in California. And so I remember I was like so excited. Like I'm not even kidding you. As soon as we pulled up the house, I took a photo and like what we found on Zillow of like the price, and I sent it to like literally everybody I knew. And they're like, because everybody I knew lived in California. And they're like, oh my God. And I'm like literally like double the size of the house, half the price, like neighborhood, like their pond, like all this stuff like that. Like just being in that excitement, right? And we hadn't
Yeah.
seen this place before we moved here. Like, yes, we saw it online, but we didn't know
Yeah.
the neighborhood. We didn't know anything. And so then I was like, like trying to like living in that, like in the next of like being so excited and like sending it to my dad and like, whatever. But it's been really good, like to get back to just like writing stuff down, even if it doesn't make sense at the time.
Mhm.
Like I told you my dream, not last night, but the night before, and the day June 19th came up and then 7 to 8, like the time. And I was like, well, I don't know of anything going on the 19th. Well, Yuki's event, but well, it's 19th and 20th. And so then I'm like, June 19th. So I just wrote it down. I'm like, June 19th, 7 8. So we'll see kind of like what comes up. And it may not even be frickin' this year, or it may be another date for something else, but um I don't know, like it sounds silly, but like it feels good to like get back to like, because I used to do that all the time. Like I have tons of like notebooks filled with just like doodling, and I would just kind of write randomness, and then later I'm like, do I need to keep this? It's just like seemingly kind of like sporadic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I now have like another sheet and I'm just gonna write like whatever. So it's been really good.
I have tons of them, and I love it. I write all the time. I have like that was one thing that I started like as soon as my pain lifted, because I hadn't like through the whole time, like my hands were like the most affected through all of this, which was, knowing that they're the creative, one of our biggest creative outlets is our hands and stuff like that. And one thing that my my therapist used to say is, you notice that I would always be touching like where I was hurting the most. I would sit there and I would just rub, like, so
Mhm.
my hands already naturally knew that they were healing and stuff like that, but it just never felt like it got through anywhere beyond just like doing this and stuff like that. And I find I've been rubbing my solar plexus a lot, because in looking at like the area that this is like, I was, and I know some of it is just because like my necklaces are here, and it's just like a ground to me, I feel like it's kind of a grounding point for me. But I've also noticed like, yeah, I've been doing this a lot, and I'm like, why am I doing this? And then I'll stop, or whatever, but I'll like unconsciously right back to rubbing this space, especially since I've been doing like the breathing work and stuff, and just knowing that. And then like I'll get this pain in my heart, and all of a sudden I'll be over here rubbing, and I'm like, why are you hurting, heart? Like, what is this stabbing pain for? And they've been coming less and less. And I feel like the voice of my heart is getting louder and louder. And but I feel like if there's like a message or whatever that I've been missing, all of a sudden I get like these stabbing pains. And I'm like, oh, what am I missing? Right. And well, let's see what comes through. And then sometimes, and if I still sometimes when I'm doing that, I feel like I'm just making shit up as things come through. And I'm like, but if I was making, I'm like, how am I even making that up? Like, why did my brain even go to those thoughts? Right. So it's been really interesting. But yeah, he used to be like, yeah, your hands are going there. But this was like where the majority of my pain was. So writing, and I've always loved to write. And that was like one of the things that, before all of this kind of went down and shifted and changed and life did its thing, travel writing was one of the things that I was like practicing for. So I went and got my business and marketing management, because I wanted to be able to do my whole business myself, like in the beginning, so I could make it the way that I wanted, and then start bringing
Yeah.
people in. So I knew all the basics of everything. Travel writing, I got my travel and tourism certificate so I could become do the travel agent thing. So traveling can get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, because I can actually sign in as a travel agent and get
Yeah.
my traveling at the cheapest possible rates. And then I got a writing course, and I actually took on a travel writing course, which I still have somewhere, but I can't find it for the life of me. But I know it'll show back up in the right time, in the right space, right? Um, so then I did that. And so I had all of these things, and then all of a sudden I couldn't use my hands anymore. So the first thing that came from my pain being gone was the writing, and how much time I wrote down everything. And I've got 26 or 30, probably more now, journals, and just of everything. And I mean, when I'm looking through them, it was repeat, repeat, repeat of, I'm abundant, I'm abundant, I'm abundant, and all the things. And then it would be like the next teaching would come, and it would be the repeat from the start, and I because my brain was still kind of frazzled from the gabapentin, I found that I was on repeat, like I that whole year, but I didn't stop repeating. Whereas I know where like the people that it took 15 years to get to where they're at, they didn't quit their jobs. They didn't, they still had to put focus elsewhere. There was no, the building of the foundation was happening secondary. right? So the information was all coming through, and I'm guessing they still manifested a lot of what they dreamt of throughout that 15 years, but in still like still giving time to other spaces, and the energy starts to break here, break there, you're sending your energy out in different directions. So you're still creating that new identity. You're still doing that within the constructs of the 3D world. So if you
Yeah.
can't stay inner to create it outer, I know that that's where like that 10-15 year span comes in. Because if I look back at when this journey started, I would say that it was probably even longer than 20 years ago. It was probably more like 30 years ago when I started to get the inclinations of all of the belief systems that are now in play today within myself. And from about the age of 35 and 34, between the ages of 34 and 36, is when I would say that the universe gave me that violent shove towards it. And I still, turned away from that calling and stuff like that. But, was still more open to some of the information, some of the different things that were coming my way. And then within this last year, but again, like people living within the 3D, it's hard and it's uncomfortable to look at your life that you've built, all of the things you've accumulated, and how we base our value of ourselves on what we own and what we have. It's hard to let that. So that was really cute. I wish I was facing that way. I'll tell you about that in a second. But it's to let go of the comforts of working that 9 to 5 and staying within that knowledge that where the money's going to come from, how the living space is going to look, how how it's going to be. It's I can understand the resistance to letting go of that, because we're bred to believe in that. We're bred to live that way. Um,
Yeah.
Whereas in this space in my life, I had already basically lost everything. I'd already let go of everything. My pain had made that, the thing, because there was no way to hang on to it. I couldn't have worked if I wanted to, so that process of letting go. So it's so funny that it is still one of those areas, that's area of surrender. Come here. Why can't you just be cute and love me? Um, that process of surrender and letting go was both easy and hard for me, because on one side of things, it's like I've already gotten used to letting go of everything. But then that was where, like, in learning that I was creating my own life, wanting that control, wanting that, having that expectation of what it was going to look like, having that want of what the end result was going to be, and having an attachment to that end result. I can understand where, in that absolute knowing that I'm creating that like I want it to be this, and the universe is like, it's going to be similar to that, but like you gotta release the helm somewhere. And I'm like, nope, I don't. You told me I don't. I'm creating. Now let me create.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I've left this chance for too long, and you keep going this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, and I'm like, and now I want it this way. And
Yeah.
so letting go and recognizing that that I'm doing what I need to do, and that it's okay to not be in, to allow the control to not all be mine. and
Yeah.
and not have to be. And that's like where Yuki says, like the consumption, and sitting in the consumption. And and I've almost made my not doing so, like the my not doing became doing, because I was doing so much in my space where I was supposed to be not doing. So yeah, like
Mhm.
finding that balance, it's not been easy for me, because of how up and down life has been, which I think is where, again, people get stuck.
Yeah.
If you've had one of those lives where it's gone swimmingly well for a few years, and then like absolute shit for the next few, and like
Yeah.
you created from one space, and then you created from the next space, you start to recognize those spaces where you're creating from. There's still that residual of up and down. So again, it's like not waiting for the universe to catch up to you. It's just allowing space for the universe to be and to give to you outside of what you expect it to look like, which is why the universe isn't the issue in what gets to us. When it gets to us, is it's literally our brains, and how, and that letting go. The universe is right. Like, I know they said we wanted a camera. our friend was like, "Oh, I need help with a generator," and shows up and gives us this camera, and we're like, "Okay." You know, like it's things like that. It's
Yeah.
it's letting go of the attachment to the outcome. It's like, "Oh, we want a camera. Well, we can't afford that right now. We can't do that right now, but we really, really want it. Let it go to the universe." And all of a sudden somebody shows up on our doorstep with a camera. My
Yeah.
tent got a huge hole in it. And the next day he's like, "Oh, I got this tent and I don't need it. Do you want it?" Okay, okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I need that.
Yeah.
We just wrecked my tent. So let's,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. And so looking at like the manifestation of the little things are easy, but when I don't believe that the manifestation of the life that you want is actually manifestation, I believe that falls under conscious creation. And I think
Mhm.
there's more of a delay between conscious creation versus manifestation because I'm watching how instantly, except for me, money still. And I'm guaranteeing that's still part of an old story, but I still am having like this difficulty instantly manifestation and instantly manifesting a large amount of money. But I believe that there is also divine reason for that in the fact that I am consciously creating like mass abundance
Yeah.
versus that need for that instant gratification of that manifestation of money.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, Bob Proctor used to say like, and again, he uses manifestation, but he would say like, to manifest a dollar is the same as manifesting $1 million. And I'm like, can you explain that? Because that's not like I believe you. I'm just
yeah.
saying that's not my awareness right now. So like,
So the
but
vibration of
and
the
I
brain
know
cells,
and I know that it's all in like the value placed behind it. Oh my God, $1 million is a lot of money. Oh my gosh, right? Like
yeah.
that's not in my family. That's not whatever, whatever, right? Like, and I get it. But um,
So
it's
so the
it's
thing that
still
I
like
learned
I
there,
can wrap my head around it logically in like
yeah.
understanding because I do understand it. But in terms of like energetically, I guess I guess it would be being that person that has $1 million versus being that person with a dollar.
Right? But the thing is, and this is actually what I read, and this is why I think your next book should be the Master Key System to the Master Key System, because I do
Mm,
believe it came in here. So it's either that or the Kybalion, which is the rabbit hole that I went down with the thing of Thoth. Is I can't remember which book it came out of, so I might have to just reread the Kybalion and see if it came from there or from the Master Key System. But either way, both books are fucking phenomenal. Um,
yeah.
brain cells. So if you look at our body, if you look at every atom, if you look at the way the earth is constructed, they say even plants have eyes, like plants can see shadows, so it's basically being, a plant has just as almost just as much, just in a different way, like awareness as us, just in a different sense, in a different way. Our brain cells vibrate. Everything vibrates. Our chair that we're sitting on vibrating. If we believe that if we were vibrating as fast and as hard as our chair, sitting down would mean that the chair wouldn't hold us anymore. We'd just sit right through it and end up on the ground because we'd be vibrating at the same level as the chair.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we are creating our brain cells are the vibration that we're vibrating at on the level of the earth. If you don't have a brain cell that is vibrating at the level that believes that $1 million is going to be within there, you're only going to vibrate at the level. The brain cells are only going to know the levels that you know. So it's creating the belief and creating a brain cell that has the belief. And that's what we're doing. That's what we are generating on the regular basis. Taking so if you can concentrate, and this is what I've actually, now that I'm saying this out loud, I'm realizing that this is what I'm doing within that silent space is I'm creating those brain cells, because as I've created the space, because you're creating space within your head, in the constructs of your head. So we are still looking at the energetics of it, of like, how do we vibrate at money? But if you look at it creatively, you're creating a brain cell. We are creators. So we don't know maybe technically how to create that essence of money, but what we can do is create the space for that essence of money. And then that allows the universe, gives the space necessary to bring you what you're looking for. So concentrate on creating the brain cell. Create the money
Mm,
brain cell. And then you're not worried about what you're creating outward. You're not worried about your 3D. You're
yeah.
literally creating the brain cell. And we have that because those are flushed and created every day. Now instead of creating something that you're saying you don't know how to create, your body naturally creates brain cells. You're just focusing on how that brain cell is going to vibrate. I'm creating a brain cell that's going to vibrate at $1 billion.
Yeah.
And then you've taken all the stress out of it, because now you're not looking at the 3D world. You're not looking at something that, well, how am I going to get this here and how am I going to do this? Because that's where we end up as humans. We want the house. We
Yeah.
know how to create a brain cell.
Mm.
So if we go to our subconscious and say, hey, we're creating a brain cell now. We're going to create the brain cell, the $1 billion brain cell. Let's get her done.
Yeah.
The subconscious knows how to do that. The subconscious is doing that on, if we weren't creating, okay, I say that loosely because I've met some people that I don't know that their subconscious knows how to actually create brain cells. But, that's neither here nor there. That's
Yes,
I just found a nice way to call people dumb.
Well, they came here to teach other people.
Yeah. But yeah, if you can, when you connect to, wow, I feel like everything, I don't know, did you just see that energy change in me? Because it was like all of a sudden I just told myself something that I already knew that I needed to say out loud. I'm like, oh, there was an instant and almost like an instant like release of peace and confidence within me. I was like, oh, I like that. Let's keep doing that. Yeah, but in reading that, that's the first time I've said it out loud after reading it out loud, essentially, and repeated that information. So yeah, I do believe that's in the master keys system, is the fact that we're creating the brain cell that actually allows the manifestation of the things that we want. It's easy to create the smaller things because it's more natural. We're used to having small things show up. But when you're creating from a smaller space, you get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's why it's easy for our brain cells, it's easy for our subconscious to believe that it can create the space for smaller things and gradually get bigger. So the amount of time it takes for you to get to those bigger things is based on you and how you can create the brain cells to get there. But if you're looking at from the outside in instead of the inside out, when you're looking to the inside, you're actually just telling your body to reprogram, essentially.
Yeah.
And looking at it from an atom perspective, oh my god. So now I understand why I seen the atom. I did mushrooms once not too long ago, just before we left Squamish. Well, we did them again here, but it wasn't quite as intense as this one. But I kept seeing the atom symbol, and it kept just spinning in front of me. Everywhere that I would look, I would see the atom symbol. And I didn't recognize it as an atom until I was like, what the hell is this? And I drew it out.
Yeah.
And Brandon's like, it's an atom. And I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. But it still didn't make a lot of sense until now.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So yeah, so take that focus inward, take it to the space between thoughts, and just focusing on creating the brain cell that's going to hold in abundance. Because then you're not focusing on the exterior world, you're not expecting your outside world to do any major changes. You're just allowing your body to create, and then your body creating the space, then the rest of the space will the as within, so without. I was supposed to I think I was supposed to figure that out like 7 days ago, but I'm always a week late. I figured that out too.
Right on time.
Right on time, exactly. Never late, right on time.
Exactly. I have a call in like 20 minutes. Hold on.
Not a problem. I will let you go prepare for that. I'm just going to hit the exit button here. Thank you, everybody, for watching today's everything. Have a great day.